welcome. I'm Geeta Mohani watching India Today Global News that's just coming in. Jaishankar has spoken to his Iranian counterpart Araghchi after a call received from the Iranian side. Both sides discussed the situation on the ground. This comes even as India has issued an advisory for its citizens in Iran. The advisory is very clear on what the Indian citizens in Iran should be doing. The Iran crisis is escalating, and amid those US threats, the two important partners, Iran and India, engage. There were reports of the Iranian foreign minister's visit to New Delhi, but that's not happening amid the kind of situation in Iran. In all probability, the two leaders also spoke on that. Iran has warned the United States of America that its bases in the region will come under attack should Washington strike Iran. Now, a day after US President Donald Trump called on Iranian protesters to continue demonstrations against the theocratic regime and is weighing on options against Iran, Qatar's international media office said precautionary measures had been taken at the US-run Udeid airbase, including the departure of some personnel because of rising regional tensions. It further added steps were part of broader efforts to safeguard the security of citizens and residents and to protect critical infrastructure and military facilities. Meanwhile, Iran has warned Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Turkey that it will hit US bases located in their territories if it is attacked by the United States. And Saudi Arabia has, in some reports, assured Iran that it will not allow its airspace to be used to attack Iran. Trump has repeatedly threatened to intervene in support of protesters in Iran, but according to sources, direct contacts between Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi and US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff have been suspended. And my colleague Sandeep Unithan joins me for more on this, senior journalist. Sandeep, thank you so much for joining me. Now, Saudi Arabia has assured Tehran that airspace will not be allowed to be used. There has been no formal statement, but this is big. It seems like West Asia, that's Middle East, does not want war between US and Iran that could spill over into their countries.
Well, West Asia is on the edge currently, given the fact that President Trump has indicated he wants to militarily intervene in Iran. He's made that very explicitly clear in the last couple of days. Now, what this means is that one of the attacks, they could come from bases, the network of US bases that it maintains in West Asia. It's the largest number of bases that any country maintains overseas. The US has a network of 8 to 10 bases in West Asia in countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Iraq, and Kuwait. Now, the fear that West Asian countries, the Arab countries have, is that Iran could retaliate to attack these bases if the US launches airstrikes from here. And this has been conveyed from, in no uncertain terms by Tehran to the Arab countries in the region. They have actually done that in the past as well after the US struck Iranian nuclear sites in 2025. And this is the biggest fear that the West Asian Arab countries have, the fact that they could be in the firing line when Trump goes after Iran. And that's one of the reasons that they are believed to have told Iran through back-channel talks that they will not allow their airspace to be used in attacks against Iran.
Right. Sandeep, thank you so much, but we'll come back to you on the war strategies of United States of America and Iran. Meanwhile, Iranian government supporters held funeral processions for those killed in recent protests a day after US President Donald Trump encouraged protesters and hinted that help is on the way, without clarifying what he meant. Tehran blamed Washington for fueling unrest as reports emerged of death sentences and fast-track trials for protesters with capital charges and continued internet shutdowns. Mahashweta Lala with this report.
A day after US President Donald Trump urged Iranian protesters to continue their protest and take over the institutions of the theocratic regime, while help is on its way, supporters backing the Iranian government held funeral procession for individuals who have been killed in the recent protests. Trucks carrying coffins moved through crowds of people, many displaying photos of Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. US-based HRA rights group said it had so far verified the deaths of 2,403 protesters and 147 government-affiliated individuals. Meanwhile, Trump declined to answer about what kind of help was he referring to.
Iran this morning that help is on the way for protesters. What did you mean by that? What kind of help?
You're going to have to figure that one out. I'm sorry.
Tehran has blamed Washington for fueling deadly and widespread protest. As fear escalates over US threat to attack Iran, reports of an anti-government protester, 26-year-old Erfan Soltani, who was arrested on January 8 during the demonstrations in West Tehran's Fardias, was sentenced to death. This comes as Iran's judiciary chief has pledged to fast-track trials for those arrested. Iran's Supreme Court Chief Justice said those who beheaded people or burned people in the streets should be tried and punished as soon as possible. Prosecutors say capital charges of rape or waging war against God will be pressed against the protesters. Internet will, however, remain suspended for at least 1 or 2 weeks more. Russia has also condemned what it called subversive external interference in Iran's internal politics and said US threats of new military strikes against the country were categorically unacceptable.
Certainly, when the US starts acting in the ways that neglect the very rules Americans themselves promoted, calling it globalization, and then abandoning their own principles, it suggests that our US colleagues appear unreliable when they behave in such a manner. They always bet on oil and other critical resources, focus solely on advancing their own interests, and use threats and direct pressure methods such as tariff partners of Iran, for instance, are subjected to 25% tariffs.
The US has issued advisory to its citizens to leave Iran. India too advised all citizens to leave Iran by available means of transport, including commercial flights. It has also cautioned Indian citizens and PIOs in Iran to exercise due caution, avoid areas of protest or demonstrations. The citizens have been urged to remain in contact with the Indian embassy in Iran and monitor local media reports for any developments. Indian citizens have been asked to keep their travel and immigration documents ready. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
While West Asia has expressed discomfort over a war between US and Iran, my colleague, senior journalist Sandeep Nathan, explains the scenarios of a war and what an American intervention could look like and what would Iran's response be.
US President Donald Trump has threatened military intervention in Iran. Now, the US would need over 100,000 soldiers if it wants to invade Iran to topple the regime, just as it did with Saddam Hussein's Iraq in 2003. But in 2026, the US neither has the troops nor does Trump have the appetite for such a full-scale conflict. Now, Trump might choose to strike at Iran using aircraft or cyber attacks targeting the Iranian regime, attempting to collapse it by killing its leaders and destroying its military infrastructure. But there's a problem because currently there are no US carrier strike groups in the region. The Iwo Jima and the Gerald Ford are of Venezuela. The Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is in the South China Sea, and of course the George Washington is in Japan. That's 3 out of 11 carrier strike groups deployed, none in theater. So the US would actually look at striking Iran with sorties launched from its network of bases here in West Asia. It has bases all across the region, in UAE, in Oman, in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Jordan, Iraq. These are bases that they've built over several decades. But there's a problem there. Some of the Gulf states might not want their airspace to be used to target Iran because they fear retaliatory strikes on their territory, in which case the US has the option of using its base in the Indian Ocean region. That's Diego Garcia. That's over 3,900 kilometers away in the Indian Ocean. Now, the US airstrikes this time around could be far more widespread than the 22nd June 2025 airstrikes on the 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Now, Iran, in response, could respond by firing hypersonic missiles and drones at US bases in the region. That's the Al Udeid airbase in Qatar, the Al Dahra base in UAE, and of course the US 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Now, all of these bases are vulnerable because they house something like 50,000 US soldiers and airmen. Now, Tehran might also attempt to enlarge the conflict by attacking Israel. It could also block the Straits of Hormuz by attacking merchant ships with missiles and deploying anti-ship mines to block this narrow passage. Now, this passage is critical. The Straits of Hormuz is where nearly 20% of global oil flows, and this blockade could increase the price of oil to double, over $120 a barrel perhaps, triggering oil shocks and global anxieties. Now, there's little that allies of Iran like Russia can do, despite the fact that they're very close. They are a few hours over the Caspian Sea. There's little they can do to help the Iranian regime except to possibly aid in the departure of their leaders or supply them with military equipment. But as things stand right now, the situation is tense. The region is on the edge because you're looking at another round of a US versus Iran conflict, which could be far, far worse than previous such installments.
Now, another breaking news coming in, this on Greenland. President Trump has again sent out a strong message through a social media post, a message to NATO on Greenland. This is a strong message to Denmark and to NATO. Trump has said to NATO that NATO needs to throw out China and Russia from Greenland. That's a threat to America. Trump reiterates his claim over Greenland, saying that it is important for America's Arctic future. Now, the President of the United States of America has also mocked Denmark with the dog sled analogy, that it's not dog sleds, that 2 dog sleds won't do it, only the US can, which means only the US can drive China and Russia out. He's also said that it is essential that Denmark and NATO drive Russia and China out. He's upping the ante over here. He's looking at a situation and scenario where he's putting out a strong message to NATO and to Denmark on how he sees and how important Greenland is to Donald Trump. So is it going to be Iran or is it going to be Greenland that's next on America's target? Now, what happens if one NATO member turns against another? Well, that's the question in the mind of every European leader as President Trump continues to propagate the importance of Greenland for the national security of the United States of America. After Greenland Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen turned down U.S. proposal of governance, Trump in a post has said Greenland is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark and also a NATO ally, is vital for U.S.'s Golden Dome. That's the missile shield America wants to build. That's what we discuss and break down for you on Statecraft today. President Trump has found a new obsession, or maybe not new. Maybe it started during his first term. It is Greenland, a frozen, windswept island of ice, rock and silence sitting at the top of the planet. An island that most Americans could not even point to on a map. And yet, this forgotten landmass has suddenly become the most contested territory on Earth. So contested that Trump has openly said the United States will take it one way or the other. And a Republican lawmaker has now introduced a bill in Congress to allow Trump to annex Greenland and turn it into a US state. Not buy it, not lease it, not negotiate for it. Annex it. Rip it away from Denmark and pull it into the American empire. NATO allies are panicking, Greenlanders are terrified, and Washington is split down the middle. So why is Trump willing to threaten alliances, destabilize the Arctic, and rewrite international law just to seize one seemingly frozen island? What exactly is hiding under Greenland that makes it worth blowing up the world order? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. Back in 2019, when Trump first said he wanted to buy Greenland, the world laughed. Late-night shows mocked him. Danish politicians joked that he should buy Disneyland instead. Greenland's government politely but firmly said the island was not for sale. Trump cancelled a state visit to Denmark in a tantrum, and the story faded. But what most people missed was that joke never left Trump's mind. And in his second term as US President in 2025, the idea of Greenland's annexation kept coming back. As China hunted for rare earth minerals, Greenland appeared on mining radars. As Russia militarized the Arctic, Greenland re-emerged as a strategic choke point. What sounded like a Trump impulse in 2019 slowly hardened into a geopolitical obsession by 2026. When Trump returned to the White House in 2025, he returned as a man convinced that America had been cheated, boxed in, and restrained by alliances. And Greenland to him became the ultimate symbol of what America should take back. In one of his first speeches to the Congress, Trump casually said the United States would make Greenland very rich and secure it one way or the other.
And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it.
By early 2026, Trump stopped pretending this was friendly negotiation. On Air Force One, he openly discussed taking Greenland the hard way if necessary. Reports leaked of Pentagon contingency plans for stabilization operations on the island. Denmark was blindsided. Greenland's government was shocked. NATO officials were horrified. No US president in modern history had ever spoken so casually about taking territory from an ally. But Trump did not care. To him, Greenland was not Danish. It was American territory that had simply not been claimed yet.
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not. Because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way.
Then came the moment when fantasy became law. Republican Congressman Randy Fine introduced the Greenland Annexation and Statehood Act. It sounds like something out of a dystopian novel, but it is real. The bill gives the US president legal authority to acquire Greenland and begin the process of turning it into a US state. Not a territory, not a protectorate, a state. This is not about buying land. This is about absorbing a foreign people and their homeland into the United States, whether they want it or not. The bill does not require a referendum. It does not require Denmark's consent. It simply gives Trump a legal door to force the issue. So why is Trump willing to go this far? The answer begins with geography. Greenland sits on what military planners call the GIUK Gap, the narrow corridor between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom that controls access from the Arctic into the Atlantic Ocean. Every Russian submarine that wants to reach the eastern coast of North America has to pass through this gap. That makes Greenland one of the most important pieces of military real estate on Earth. The promise of US statehood sounds generous, but it would drown Greenlanders in American politics, American laws, and American corporate power. They would become a tiny voice inside a giant empire. As ice melts, Greenland becomes more valuable every year. Trump does not see climate change as a crisis. He sees it as an opportunity. Once Trump commits to a territorial goal, he does not retreat. He escalates. Greenland is now tied to his legacy. Europe is nervous. Canada is uneasy. Russia alert. China calculating. And Greenland waits, caught between empires. This is not about ice. It is about who controls the future of the planet. And Trump has decided that future should belong to America. Thank you for watching Statecraft. That brings us to the end of this show. Thank you so much for watching. But before we leave you with these visuals of Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi and South Korean President Lee Jae-myung in an unexpected jam session where the two played drums along some K-pop hits.